I listened to the Amy Taylor episode of this podcast years ago, and I remember it kind of being a relatively like formulative like thing in my process of thinking about becoming a musician. And like I thought her talking about the coal scooping way and wearing the little hat was so funny to me, because that's such a niche Australian thing, and just like her intense work ethic and like doing whatever you can to make it work so that you can live the dream was just like, it's very in my brain.
Hell yeah, that's so good to hear. That's the fucking dream for me. So thank you, that's sick. What's your experience of being in music and knowing that everything, or finding out that everything costs loads of money,
like touring, or
all of it?
It's a
like
sobering thing.
It's very sobering,
and I think it continues to be sobering. Like the farther we get, you know, it's like you're still losing money, even if you're more successful. I think until you reach a real threshold, like you will always be kind of working in the negative in a way, and with like energy and like money and just generally everything is kind of, apart from like, you know, the music is always like that's the positive,
that's
and
the
like,
magic.
That's worth it. But I mean, that's my take.
We were talking about this last night over dinner, because we had dinner with our manager, and about how like you can look at any band, like now we have the understanding that from slogging it ourselves, but you can look at any band and be like, they're so good, wow, you know, at a really early stage in their career, and just be like, wow, they're so good. But there's lots of bands that are so good at that point, and it's just like, which one of you is gonna slog it and like do it really, really hard and move back in with your parents and like be homeless and like all the, like when you come home, sleep on people's couches, and like, you know, I lived with like $200 to my name for like 2 years. And it's stressful, and it's you go so far into the negative, and so many categories in like your energy, and like it makes you question whether you want something that up until a certain point you were sure of your whole life. Like, you know, like growing up knowing like, I want to play music for the rest of my life, that's a no-brainer, and then you get to this point where it starts happening, and then you start questioning it because of all of the high costs of your energy and being fucking exhausted all the time, and the money, so much money. But
I think in a way, and I think this is important to say, because obviously by nature this conversation is a bit of a bummer.
It's a bummer. It's also funny.
It's worth talking about.
I don't think it needs to be a bummer, because there are ways that you can make this work, and like if you do want it enough as like hardcore of a thing that is like it can work, but it is exhausting and it is a really hard slog, and it isn't necessarily something that has a formula or makes sense, and just because you work hard you're not necessarily going to get what you want. But it's people should talk about it. I mean, I feel very lucky because my parents are musicians that haven't had like a conventional trajectory of making music as their primary income for their whole life. So I feel like I have kind of had this secret key for a big part of my life, where I've understood that it's okay if you don't make it work 100%, just as long as you still make time for the music, because like that will fuel your like passion. But like it's confronting realizing how long you do have to work before you make a single, before you see any money. And I think a lot of our peers have been shocked to like see the things we've been doing and then be confronted with the reality that we're not making any money. But instantly also I'm like, I could be living like this much more comfortably and be doing like heaps more boring stuff with my life. And I would like, it's like as soon as I think of the comparison, I'm like, oh, well, I wouldn't take that. Also, even if I was living way more comfortably, I wouldn't take that. And also, something that I was listening to the other day, I was listening to the Tracy Emin with Louis Theroux podcast. Great podcast episode. Podcast episode. And she was talking about her life, and it's like she's just had a slog of it, like, and also been like such an incredible artist. And Louis kind of said something to her that was like, oh, gee, you know, that's hard. It wasn't pitying, but he was, you know, just a little bit like, gee, yeah, that's hard. And she was like, yeah, but I wouldn't, you know, it's just part of it because I have an interesting life. I've always had an interesting life.
I think embracing it is like a really special thing. Like embrace the bad, difficult times, but embrace like the good times I feel like when you're a teenager and you're trying to like fit into school and then you try and fit into work, like being able to be earnest and honest about music or about something you like is kind of kicked out of you. So then to kind of go out and say, like, you know, with your full body and your mind, be like, no, this is what I'm gonna do. That's like a special thing. Like, fucking do it. Make music.
Especially when you're Australian. Like, it's
how so?
not just, you know, like it's like a whole thing, and we could like go into it, but we shouldn't because it's such a deep hole. But just like, you know, tall poppy cutting and the weird relationship Australia has with success, and just
I feel like it's understood in Britain
for sure, definitely. But I just think
hobby cutting,
tall poppy cutting. So the idea that someone is, you know, taller than you want to cut them down so that they become your equal. But I think it definitely is a thing in Britain, but there's also more people in Britain, so there's more musicians who are more openly trying to play the game. And I think in Australia it's still frowned upon, and it does still feel so vulnerable to like openly be like, yeah, I'm trying to make my career work, I'm trying to do this properly. And
it almost opens you up for someone to like take the piss out of you immediately, doesn't it?
And that's the natural cultural inclination for Australians, for sure.
Fuck them. What were your lives like growing up? I mean, your parents played music.
Yeah.
Did you like have a scene, or did you have from Northcote, the suburb?
Northcote.
Northcote. Is there like an all ages venue there?
Not an all ages venue, but like if you're little, your parents can take you to the pub.
Yeah,
like, I mean, you can go see gigs. We all grew up
going to seeing gigs at the pub.
I didn't really see that many gigs growing up. I'm now like, I think about it, I'm like, you know, there was
the Lowy band.
I feel like we would sometimes go to there's a pub in Brunswick East, like, you know, where we're from, where it's called the Lomond, and there's like the Lowy band. It was and it's like such a good pub. But I think maybe we'd go to that pub sometimes. But when you guys talk about going to the pub with your parents and like being there all the time, I'm like, yeah, we weren't doing that.
There is something about seeing like older people. I got it at the cricket club growing up on like Sundays. We play with like the pub team with my older brother and my dad, and then I got it later on in pubs in music, which is funny enough. Like one of the pubs I like first went to in London. I lived here now, like the Bird's Nest in Deptford, and it's like grimy as fuck. But I remember being like, this is like a ecosystem of people who are kind of getting by, and they're all fucking weird in a great way, and I want to be around these people. Like, and I thought, okay, that's this out there, but I think maybe to make it work, well, what I've realized in my like 34 years is like to pay rent and to kind of hang out with your friends and afford like going for a beer or two, you got to somehow kind of like fall between the cracks, or like get a bit lucky, or like just find a job that you can do on the meantime when you on the other side of when you're doing what you want to do.
Yeah.
Have you found that crack yet? Of like the sort of bit of a key to being sustainable. And
like we're at a very new stage. We've committed to doing this full time in this very elusive way where it feels very fragile, but it is simply
difficult to talk about.
And simply though the only answer, because we are all exhausted from being on tour for 7 weeks right now, and we are on tour until December, and it's August right now. So like we can't do anything else, or we will just run out of steam to do what we love. But yeah, like Heidi and I have moved back in with our folks at the ripe age of 23 going on 24, which like feels like this strange thing, because it feels like we're at the precipice of like maybe a big part of our career, and then it's like I've moved back in with my mum, which has actually been,
but it's a smart idea if it works
for you, and like we're so privileged that it does work for us, and it's actually been really, really nice because we don't get to spend. Our parents are fantastic.
You get along with your parents, that's such a touch.
They're like hilarious,
and we barely get to see them because we're on bloody tour all the time, so it's great. But yeah, there's definitely sacrifices, and it's definitely not a linear path that at any point has made total sense yet, but it does feel like now more than ever it is on the path to.
But finding that job, like before we did this, we've all had to like find a job to like that our boss, whoever we're working for can understand that we'll leave for several weeks or months.
That's asking a lot, isn't it? It's quite funny.
Yeah,
but
and
why,
like,
but
we're not the most, we're like, you know, we're great workers, I think, but like you don't want to hire people who aren't going to be there, you know. But I think before we kind of dove into this full time, we were all lucky to get jobs that like our bosses are really understanding.
What was the moment like where you were like, okay, we're going to do this full time? Was it?
I still haven't quit my job.
I texted my manager this morning, which like it didn't necessarily have anything to do with this podcast, but it also probably did, because it definitely made me think. But yeah, I texted her this morning. She just hasn't answered me yet, but I think it's expected. But yeah, I was sitting in the park today eating my supermarket salad, and I was like, wow, I'm a full-time musician. But yeah, it's so strange. It's been like a strange journey getting here, because it is full-time in your brain, and making these side hustles work is this weird thing, and like spending time at jobs that aren't necessarily degrading in nature, but you feel degraded because your passion is so like fired up elsewhere, and your energy is so precious.
And you get into positions where it's like you have gigs or whatever where you get in there and it's like you're met by the staff and by everybody working on team as like, okay, you're coming in not just as like the person pulling the beers, but you're a professional. I'm a professional. We're working with you. You're here, and it's like, all right, finally, yep, I'm here to do my job, what I'm really good at, and I'm going to excel at it, and I'm being taken seriously, and I am very serious about it. And then you do the gig or whatever, and it's like, all right, this big thing, whatever, yada yada, and then you come back and you're behind the counter again at work, and it's like, that is very confusing.
Yeah, you get whiplash.
Very weird.
Like
it's not, and it doesn't help you take yourself seriously.
No. Right. Yeah. It's almost kind of like going to reverse some of it has the potential to kind of like backtrack on some of the roads that you've made to become like
I think it's kind of good for the ego in a way. It keeps it in check.
Getting recognized at the part-time job, it's good for the ego, and then on the other hand, I think it's good for this thing that we're talking about, where people who maybe consider themselves like fans of our work are like, oh, like you have a part-time job, like I guess the music industry might be in a bad place. Like it definitely I've definitely seen it make people think before.
Hopefully it makes people feel less bad about it as well, right? Because it's like, I can't be on that big stage if I'm working this other job. No, you can definitely do it, but people are doing both.
And most people do. And most people do.
If you want to like, you know, go hard and be ambitious, like you have to do that, because you need as much money as you can get your hands on to make that work. So of course people who are incredibly ambitious and have success in their futures are going to be working at the pub, because they need to pay their rent so that they have as much time to write songs and think about other things. I think at times I felt the most inspired by like super mundane things, and I've felt worried at times in the recent like part of this journey where I'm like, shit, like I can't just write songs about being on tour for the rest of my career, and I can't just write songs about like playing shows. Like no one wants to hear that, and I think there's so many interesting songs out there with like backstories of people who are still working their slog job, and I think that can provide a lot of creative inspiration for sure.
It's the total classic thing of like when I was working at the pub, I would be like going off and like writing notes,
thinking,
but that's like you hear that story a million billion times, is that people are writing their best songs when they're like at work working at the workplace, doing the shit job, to quote Cash Savage of Melbourne, Australia.
Keep working at your job.
Keep working at the job.
What were you going to text your boss today? What did you text your boss in the park?
I'm not going to be coming back.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Jeanie.
It is funny. It is.
You got
funny.
this.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I feel good about it. It feels like the right choice, and that does feel. I think there's so much imposter syndrome with like what working hard means when you're a musician, and like often the work we do is so weird and mundane that it feels difficult to identify with the idea that we're even working, especially because we're young as well, and you know it's all just so confusing, and it's hard to go, no, this is my job now, especially when you're not making any money.
101 part-time jobs. It doesn't have to be the supermarket job or whatever, the retail job or anything like that. It's the job of being in the band. Like, you guys have got to be somewhat organized, right?
Yeah, but we've all had really fun part-time jobs, though.
Yeah, I mean, I've had... we were talking about this, that I've had some really shit jobs.
Yeah, shit jobs. Maybe we should all tell it.
Let's tell it.
Please.
Yeah. My first job was at Nando's at the age of, like, 14, 15. And I have really bad memories of it, obviously, like a sewage pipe breaking and...
Not inside the restaurant.
And, like, the Doc Martens that I wore, like, my mum made me, like, leave outside because they were so disgusting. And, like, I would always get in trouble for not wearing my bandana because it was actually in, like, a very cool part of Melbourne on Smith Street in Collingwood, and so like all of like my older sister's like cool friends would like come in and I'd be wearing like my bandana. It was so embarrassing, and I had to crack the chickens to make them like that, and I was vegan. It was just rough. Yeah, it's gone uphill from there though.
We're doing something like that when you're so young. It puts in like a real marker. It's like, okay, I've done that.
I mean, like, it's interesting looking back on it. I certainly didn't need to be doing that at the age of 15 for 11 Australian dollars an hour, but money is the ticket to your autonomy and your ability to do whatever you want. And like, I do actually think that formulated idea that came from Nando's has stuck with me.
Yeah, and if something's not going to plan, or you have to do something that you don't really want to do, it's probably not going to be as bad as that.
No, nothing will ever be as bad as me at 10:30 on a school night cracking chickens. You know,
it's
nothing
not a nice
will
sound,
ever
is
be
it?
No.
If you're vegan.
It's horrible.
It's horrible.
It's horrible. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Laughing at each other's pain here.
Yeah.
When I was in year 11 and 12, I went to a music high school for the last 2 years of school, and they basically were like, no one can have part-time jobs. Like, we don't want you to, because the schedule was so full for all the kids. But me and my friend who was a pianist, he got this gig working at this speakeasy, like a fake speakeasy.
Yeah.
That was, and this is the part that makes me laugh to remember. It was on King Street in the middle of Melbourne, which is like dodgy as fuck. It's like the downtown of the downtown. And it was above a brothel. And it was like the most falling apart, dodgy joint that had like a stage with red curtains and a smoke machine, and the guy that ran it was an old carny called Roy Malloy.
Roy Malloy.
Could talk about name and shame.
Sorry.
The Roy Malloy, isn't that the saxophone player from Alex Cameron's band?
No, it's not that guy.
His name's Roy Malloy, I'm sure.
It's definitely not that guy.
Okay, it's a different Roy Malloy.
Sorry, Roy Malloy, but
small, but not
I had a show there when I was 17 that he gave me a stage name for.
What was your stage name?
I'm not saying.
So you performed?
Yeah, every Saturday. I had my own show.
Piano?
No, I was singing, and like my friend was playing piano, but he would play piano for all the other artists. Also, Roy Malloy himself would get up and do Frank Sinatra bits. Our friend, it was like the dodgiest joint ever. Our friend Imre ended up running the kitchen. It was so dodged, but that gave me, I had to like have two sets of music ready.
Jazz as well, right?
Yeah, it was all jazz standards. I was dressed up in like a red velvet dress, and it was jazz standards, and I had to have my shit in order, and I got like $150 every week, and that was really good. But my other job that like was actually my part-time job was working at the Northcote Social Club, and I got that when I was like 19, 20 because Jeannie's dad told me that Courtney Barnett used to pull beers there. And I was like, I'm going to do that, and that was amazing.
It's a good enough reason to do anything.
I also have worked at guitar shops and a heavy metal record store, which was really fun.
Hell yeah. Want to ask, with the club upstairs, would you be like doing the kitchen and then running back and singing?
I wasn't doing the kitchen, but one of our friends, Imre, is a saxophonist, and he'd get up with the other acts and then go back.
That sounds fun.
Like pull the Coles pizzas out of the fridge and put them in, and then sell them for $25.
Kind of sketchy, but sounds fun.
Yeah.
It was so much fun. I remember my mum came and she was like, this is fucked. It was literally above a brothel, and like the crowd was just like drunk bogans that would be walk-ups. For me, it was like magical.
Yeah.
And I was 17 and like I had my own show and nobody had to know about it.
Well, it's a secret.
And I got lots of performing practice.
It's nice to play somewhere where you can not be afraid to like fail or bomb or whatever. I think that's like a really important thing, to be able to go somewhere like that and sing or play whatever you're doing.
I also got to put on a character.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Which was really fun.
Heidi, how about you?
I've had actually really good jobs. My first job was at a cinema in Melbourne and it was fun. I was there for a couple of years. The management were fucked. It was like the whole team were it was like sort of toxic workplace, but it was like kind of cool and you just get to see free movies all the time. It was fabulous. It was great. And like then you'd get like discounted drinks and shit like that. So Jeanie and I, like we would all just go to the movies all the time.
Just a last question. I'm a big fan of fuck ups in the workplace. And I think everyone's kind of got a couple to their name. You know, some real kind of like look your face in the mirror and be like, okay, this is life right now. Hopefully this day ends and we wake up tomorrow and the world has changed.
Well, I fucked up with sales at the record store once, the heavy metal record store that I worked at, and my boss was can we swear?
Yeah.
Punk ass motherfucker. Full respect to the man. But I remember someone bought $200 worth of records and like I didn't check that they put their pin in and he walked out of the shop. And I remember just being like, as soon as my boss came in that day, being like, I've got to tell you something.
Yeah.
Take it out of my pay. And he was very kind and didn't, but like
Well, it's nice of you to offer to take it out of your pay.
Of course.
Not everyone would.
Also, when I started working at the pub, I was like, I was just kind of blown away by the responsibility of making drinks and cocktails. I was like, no one's watching me right now. Like, I could just fuck this shit up.
Yeah. And you do. And you did. I did.
I definitely, probably a couple times, but it was pretty good.
Well, I got fired from a job for being an unreliable musician.
This is the place.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I never really fucked up, but they just, like, hated me because they would like only put me on weekends and then I would just like cancel last minute because like we had a show and I didn't really care because I had saved up heaps of money living at home with my parents during lockdown and working at a call center so that I could kind of be an unemployed musician. So I didn't really care about getting fired from that job. But when I worked at the call center, I used to get in trouble because sometimes I would disconnect the call if I just couldn't be fucked. And a few times they would like put me on the 6 a.m. shift and because I was working from home, I would just fall asleep and like be woken up by the sound of someone's voice being like, hello. So that's probably a fuck up.
That's good. I think it's cool. When I had jobs in my early 20s, I took it seriously. I think I had a bit of a hangover from school where I never liked getting told off, and if I ever got told off, I'd get a little tear in my eye.
That's such a funny thing, getting a little tear in your eye when you get told off. That is so...
I think I still do it.
I still get that. I can't think of any major fuck-ups. Like, I've had a few jobs. Like, I worked at the cinema, I worked at a pub, I worked at a record label, and then a guitar shop. But I feel like...
You're very reliable.
I mean, actually, I technically got fired from the cinema and it broke my heart because I was there for a couple of years and I was very young. I was like 18 and at that stage we were not busy, but they were like, it's seeming like your priorities aren't with the cinema. And I was like, I'm 18. Like, I know, my priorities are not with the cinema. And then they just sort of fired me and that was very sad.
But sorry, my priorities are not with my 3 shifts a week.
Yeah, that is like a specific feeling. Like the few days after that are a bit gutting.
Yeah, right? I remember going home and just being like, I'm a failure. Like I was fully like, but they couldn't really give me any reason because I was like, what? But you know, like why have I done something wrong? And they were like they just couldn't tell me, and I think that really freaked me out. And then going into other jobs, I was always like really like just hypersensitive, I think. But
I think that we like do, even though we even like talking about this stuff all the time and being a bit more aware of like your job isn't everything.
Yeah.
Especially now, I feel like our generation know that like we're probably going to work like 15 jobs in our life, whereas our parents probably maybe work like 2.
Yeah.
I think people maybe realize a little bit more now that it's like, just like fuck it. Being, your work doesn't make who your job doesn't make you who you are.
Yeah.
I think that's like a really powerful feeling.
Yeah.
To remember that.
Especially like it's just a job, and like for your boss, it's also just a job.
And you're making more money for them than you are for yourself.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So fuck them.
But there's also a lot of power in doing a really good job.
Yeah.
And I really don't, I believe in never half-assing anything that you do.
Yeah.
And I also stand by that. And I stand by like doing the best job that you can, but also being aware that yes, it is just a job.
We often talk about like going to bed and keep like you're still working when you're dreaming. Like
that happened when you're working at the pub.
So
or like,
many times I come home from the pub at like 5 a.m. and I would like go to sleep and I was still pulling beers.
Yeah.
Like
I used to hear the Deliveroo chime from Nando's in my sleep. It was so stressful. And like my last job that I texted the manager, I would go through people's secondhand clothes and like select what the store was gonna keep, and I would just be like going through things and like looking at crotch stains and being like, oh, in my sleep. You never clock off. The worst one though is still being at the gig. You're still in the beer garden having people be like, that was great, and you're like, oh.
We've had some amazing famous people sightings.
Any celebrity sightings at your shows?
Oh, yeah, the other night.
Yes, actually at All Points East.
Sorry, mate, but we noticed you if you watch this podcast because Heidi's a fan.
He's in Doctor Who. No, it's not Matt Smith. He plays Rory in Doctor Who.
I haven't watched
in
this.
the 11th Doctor season. This is really embarrassing that I'm like, I could look, but
an actor from Doctor Who.
Anyway, I looked. Wait,
I think you have to look it up.
Yeah, I'll look it up. This is Darvel, Arthur Darvel. I saw.
Let's see him.
This guy.
Okay.
Yeah,
and he was front and center.
He does look like a sort of. There's probably a lot of people that look like him going at All Points East.
Yeah,
So you think it wasn't him?
No, I think it could have been him. No, I'm saying it probably was him.
No.
Us on Instagram after.
He did.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
I'm not sure if it was even afterwards. It might have been before. Maybe he's a fan. Who knows?
Yeah.
When we were at in Brighton playing showcases for The Great Escape, Lewis Capaldi was in the room before we played, and then he left. He was there to see his mate that played before us, but
I think he's a bit of a fucking legend, Lewis Capaldi.
yeah, he's an
He
absolute
seems like a
fucking
legend.
legend.
Yeah, we met someone recently who I think it was in Glasgow. It was like one of the venue people, and they're like, yeah, we're mates. He's great. He's a legend. And I feel like maybe everyone in Scotland
is like, yeah, my mate Lewis.
Yeah.
Hey, good to chat. Good to hang out.
Great
Thank you very much for your time.
We've been chatting too
Thank
long.
you.
No, this is good. More chat, the better.
Hell yeah.
Edit that down.
Cheers for watching. This is 101 Part-Time Jobs. You can find us on Apple, Spotify, and all podcast apps. We've done interviews with Aurora, Kneecap, Idols, Lauren Maybury of Churches, and loads more. So tap into 101 Part-Time Jobs on Spotify, Apple, and all podcast apps.